Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
And we are here with Greta Ruth. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. We are excited to learn more about you. We are excited to talk about your new release, The Fawn, your new album, which is exciting. That came out on January 29th.
Yeah.
Well, let's just even backtrack a little bit and say we enjoyed your video last summer very much, and that was sort of my first introduction to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I call myself an experimental folk singer-songwriter. I like the word folk because I play acoustic guitar and sing, and oftentimes it's just me. So it's kind of minimalist in that way, but experimental because I tend to use a lot of like weird chords, maybe like jazz chords or just chords that I kind of find with my own ear. And so it's and a lot of my song structures are not super linear, or rather, they're not like verse chorus verse chorus. Sometimes they are, but so that's why it's kind of experimental and folk at the same time.
Well, and it sounds a little classical to me too, and maybe it's that motion of, and something might get repeated or it might not, and it's very highbrow, you know. It's nice to listen to in that way, but it does very much remind me of some of the, and I don't know a ton about classical music, but it had that kind of feel of motion.
Yeah, thank you. I think the word that I kind of like, and now I'm realizing it kind of is linear. So it's not that it's not linear. It's through composed, where you kind of start at the beginning and you just kind of write until the end. So yeah, a theme might come back, but it might be different the whole way through.
Nice. And how did you get involved in music? How did you get involved in this style?
So I've actually been writing songs for as long as I can remember. Like as a little girl, I would just kind of sing them in my head or like, sing them to myself. I started guitar when I was 13. And so that's when I kind of first was like, okay, I can write a song and have an instrument, with it. And started to form bands with friends in middle school and pretty much never stopped since then. But I was too afraid to sing in front of a single human being until it was actually I went to Perfect Arts High School in Golden Valley, and some collaborators and ensembles there were like, "Oh, you wrote the song, you have to sing it," and I was just like, "What? No!" And then they kind of like helped me find the the comfort to do that. So I'm very grateful.
That's fantastic. And that is exactly what this school is meant for.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then when was it the comfort of having your fellow students there with you, or were they on stage? How did that go down?
I think it was kind of, the thing that was kind of the tipping point for me was the validation of them just kind of being like, "Oh, you wrote it, you can sing it." Instead of just like, "Oh, maybe you should find someone who's confident enough to sing it." So I think it was just a simple like, "Oh, these are other artists that I respect and they're saying I can do it, so I probably can do it,"
It speaks volumes. Yeah. Well, someone else said I could. I'm sure I can. It's just kind of a reminder to everybody. You don't know what you say affects somebody else. It's we can train our own heads to say that to ourselves.
And that's what I did. Over the years, because I look back and I hear how I sang then, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know why I was scared to sing because I was not at all trained, and I really didn't have like control of my voice. So and now I even teach voice, so it's really been a whole journey.
I think that your voice is so intertwined with the music. I would have a hard time hearing somebody else do it in some ways. It seems very personal.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's kind of the lucky thing about kind of being someone who didn't identify as a singer initially. I really thought, I was more of a writer and a guitarist. So it kind of let me just develop my own style really slowly and really organically.
When you were writing and you didn't think you were going to be the singer, did you write less personal? You know, not about yeah, less personal, I guess.
That's a really interesting question. I think that in a way, yes, but I think it was more my age. Because when I was writing songs in like middle school and high school, I didn't have a lot of life experience. And so I would kind of write them. I also like to write stories, and like I thought I was going to be a novelist. And so I like to write lyrics as fiction, kind of, at the time. So in a way, yes, but I think I was thinking about it more from that angle of like, oh, letting my imagination really go instead of, having basing it off of experiences I maybe hadn't had yet.
It seems like I was saying that we watched your video last summer. We posted your video last summer, Night Gets Cold. And that has such an awesome storyline in that video.
Thank you.
It
Yeah,
seems like your story writing skills really came in there.
that's been a very, very fun thing, doing the videos and getting to think about, okay, is there a huge, like, not a huge, but is there a specific narrative that wants to appear from the lyrics or from the visuals? And sometimes there is, and sometimes it's more abstract. Because my recent video, the waves,
Yeah.
the waves, yeah, that one's more abstract. It's just like some wave images and me playing guitar and the lyrics kind of showing up. But sometimes I really like to do a full story too. It's harder to accomplish. You have to plan a lot more. But that one we just shot on an iPhone, and that was really early. That was during like the real lockdowns, initial lockdowns in Minnesota. So resources were very limited, but I don't really mind that. I mean, not lockdowns, but I don't really mind limited resources. I think sometimes it can fuel creativity.
Well, I remember because it's there's a part of the video for Night Gets Cold where you're sort of looking into a mirror and mirroring the images that you are doing for yourself, sort of deal. I must have read, because I don't think we spoke about it at the time, but initially that you had that written for two different people, but then due to COVID, it's you and you. And I thought that added such an interesting dimension to the video.
Yeah, and it actually ended up meaning a lot to me, because at first I was even thinking like, oh, maybe I can find like two sisters to play these two characters, or me and a close friend where I feel like they're my sister or something. Because it's really a song about kind of like me talking to myself. So
Yeah.
so it got to actually become that for the viewer. So yeah, I don't know. Things just kind of work that way with art sometimes.
Well, and it worked out really well. I mean, I love that story, but I also like the video for the waves. It is just
Yeah.
it has an emotion to it. As you said, more than a story. It's
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of just trying to sit in the mood and the emotion. Yeah, and I was really lucky. Again, that was another one during COVID, and my friend Sarah DeVolos was trying to get more into doing video, and so she offered to do that for me, and we just did it in her one little studio room in her house, like an hour north of the cities. And yeah, I mean, again, like, you would never know that it was shot that way, just based off what she put into it and how she.
No, I was going to say that's such a beautiful art piece. It's so, yeah, put together. I would have thought it was really professional. Tell me too, like, do you have much direction for your videos, or do you kind of say, give me your vision, yes, no, or how does that go about? Because it sounds like you're surrounding yourself with good people too.
Yeah, I like to do a combination. All of my songs with this solo project are very much my heart and soul. So they all have very very specific meaning to me. So I usually have like a thorough list of images, sometimes with some videos I've had like shot by shot what I want. But then when I know I'm working with someone I trust, which I mean, I basically only do that anyway. Like with Sarah, she actually had an idea. She sent me like a video one time of her just experimenting with some of those effects in her house. One thing we did was used an old projector like you would have had in school that you put like a sheet on and you draw on. She had one of those and we set up some sheets on it, and then she was like putting drops of water on it and it was projecting. So she showed me like half a year before that, like, hey, here's me trying this in my house. Like, it'd be cool to shoot something with you playing guitar with this. So that one kind of, she kind of helped develop the idea for that one. And yeah, that one was like really collaborative, I guess. But sometimes I always go into it with a plan and I'm never low on ideas, basically. But I like when other people have ideas too.
I'm so glad you told how that was done. I wanted to ask, and I thought, well, I don't know if that's such a, but I do like that. I mean, it has a feeling of Ophelia to me. That video, it's very much, you know.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of Ophelia, the first time I hung out with my friend Sarah, and then our other friend Elena Stanton, she does a lot of photos for me, and I mean, she's an amazing local photographer. The first time I hung out with the both of them, they asked me if I would jump into a swimming pool with this flowy dress on and these fake flowers and do a photo shoot. And I was like, of course, why not? I hardly know you. Of course. So I'm lucky to have people like that in my life who have, you know, they're inspiring and they offer things that I'm not an expert in. You know, I'm not a photographer, a videographer.
Well, it is fantastic, and I'm sure you bounce ideas off each other. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they get plenty of ideas from you too.
Yeah, it's very fun.
That's so. The songs, as we've sort of said, and seem so personal. So a song like Oslo, and there's some of the lines from there that I just think we're so, you know, who are you fighting? You're at your mercy. Those are such striking lines.
Thank you. That one is one I wrote. So a few of the songs from this album, I actually wrote when I was like in my I was like 19 and 20 and living in New York. And I'm 28 now, so that was like, you know, they're a little bit older at this point, but I really relate to them, and they really told part of the story that I wanted this album to tell. And it's an album I've been meaning to put out basically since then. And that one is one of those. And I was having all these realizations about how so many of our struggles are really struggles with ourselves. And there's like I named it after a couple things. Actually, I named it after a coffee shop that I went to all the time called Oslo in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. Okay. And then I also watched this movie called Oslo August 31st.
Ooh.
And it's a very, I think, well, it's Norwegian, very like small, like independent. I found it randomly on Netflix or something at the time. I was very into just finding obscure movies to watch. And something about just what I was going through and what that movie showed really hit. And there's a scene, I guess this is a spoiler, but people can skip this.
That's okay.
I was going to say, everybody's watched everything on Netflix by now, right?
They had their chance. But there's a scene where this man, it's basically like a whole day in the life of this, I think he's like a recovering drug addict. I don't want to get it all wrong, but he's definitely personally struggling a lot. And he just got out of some kind of program, like full-time program, and he is kind of like reviewing his old life, and you know, nothing is fitting how he wants it to, and he goes to the river or some body of water and ties rocks to himself and tries to walk into it, something like that. Or no, he just puts them in his pocket. He somehow attaches them to himself but then he obviously just gets out because it wasn't enough to, that's not actually effective. And I just thought it was so poignant to see, like, we try in all these ways to kind of thwart ourselves, but there's some instinct that kind of stops it. And it's this battle between the two. Another image that I like journaled about at the time, for a same kind of symbolism, but have you guys seen The Lord of the Rings? So the character Gollum, when he has conversations with himself, and there's like Smeagol is like the sweet past self, and then Gollum is the kind of corrupting, really sinister force. So that was another image. I was like, we all kind of have that. That's extreme. Those two are very extreme, but I was seeing in my life and in people that I loved in their lives that was just very real.
I feel it's super interesting that these are 10 years old and it sounds so perfect for now. I'm like, seriously, how spot on for right now. It's like gold. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, that's just the luck of art. It's kind of, I would have wanted it to those songs. I had them written so long ago. I would have wanted to release them in some sense, but things work out how they should, and I think that you just have to trust that.
When you've got such a long-standing history to choose from with music writing, how do you select? Let us know which were some of the newer songs on the album.
Sure, yeah. The newest, I think, was Like You. And then other new ones would be The Fawn was actually new, and I named it that. And Till the Petals Fell was pretty new. Really, the old ones were Famine Months, Oslo, and Full Hue. Those opened the album, and that's how I wanted the album to open back when I wrote those. So I kind of kept that. And then the other old one is Topped.
Nice.
Yeah. Otherwise, they're more in the past, like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the lines again from The Fawn, because there were some. I mean, you've still got some of the, I go for walks to talk to God and something. I mean, would you call your music spiritual?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's. And not just because you've mentioned God here, but there's the themes of water and the themes of nature and so much of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, because for me, songwriting is healing, and I think anything healing is spiritual on some level. I don't know. Writing songs, it's how I can process things. It's how I can reach to something more than just something like my ego, my ego reaction. And again, that's to me something that's spiritual. Music just is, when it's right, it really just is. And I was really lucky. I did my whole school experience in a stretched out way and transferred and stuff and took time off. But I finished at Cal Arts in California. Okay. I was only there for a couple years, but I got to participate in a lot of world music ensembles. Ooh. And those were phenomenal. I mean, the music on its own, but then also kind of seeing how spiritual each of them were in their own way, and kind of seeing like, this is how I feel when I do my music too, not that our music in America is never spiritual, but there's something about, like, I was in gamelan ensemble, and before a performance, everyone prays together. So there's just certain things you're like, oh yeah, I don't necessarily pray before I perform, but there's something similar that I do,
But there's something about international music. There's something about music that you didn't necessarily grow up with, that you didn't hear when you were a kid, that opens your brain in a different way.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and I can see where some of the experimental side, where you're saying, you know, you're not following a rote process for a song necessarily, because it's that it sure seems like this would be you know, a result of spending time with
Mhm.
those musicians.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I felt very blessed to have those experiences.
So you've done quite a bit of traveling from here to for Brooklyn to California.
Yeah, now I'm back.
I was gonna say you are back in Minneapolis now, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just just in time for Minneapolis's finest year.
Well, it's not great in New York or LA.
No, I suppose not.
This is a worldwide problem, so.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And most of the music that this new album, was that recorded in the last year or?
Yeah, that was recorded over the summer. Yeah. So actually, my now husband, Zach, recorded it for me on 4-track. So tape, directly to tape, just in his apartment. Um, Very hot. We had to turn the air conditioning off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pass out. We'd have to like, if we like stopped to take a break to listen to something, we'd have to like open the windows and stuff and turn on the AC because we were just trying to make it quiet enough to record there.
That's awesome. Everyone else is shipping files from here to there. And no one thinks of Minnesota as being that hot. You have really countered all the stereotypes of Minnesota the last summer. So that's fantastic. No, but before we push record, you were telling us you're working on some more videos.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little sneaky peek about some of those?
Absolutely. The one that's probably going to come out first is actually, so my husband, Zach, does some video stuff. He filmed Night Gets Cold for me. And he is helping me make one for famine months right now. So that's the first track from the Fawn. One thing that I've wanted to do in videos is really showcase how beautiful Minnesota is.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Like I've lived, obviously I've lived in other places and I think people don't really know what it's like here. And it's so gorgeous. So even like, so this one I tried to plan my videos like which ones need winter landscapes, which one need spring, so I could just prioritize when to film them. And family months, it needs winter. And so one day we woke up and it was, I think they call it hoarfrost when it's like everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we were just like, this is the day, we're going out to shoot. And normally I would like to be like, oh, I'm going to get my hair and makeup done, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. But it was like the perfect day to film. So we just went out. I did my own hair and makeup. So that one should be coming out. I'm hoping to kind of time it with the live stream show to kind of like share it that week or something. And then the other one I'm going to be doing.
I'm just going to say for people who are listening, and that live stream will be on March 27th.
Yes, March 27th, Saturday at 7 p.m. on my Bandcamp. And you can already buy tickets on there if you look under merch. Awesome. And it's going to be, I'm very excited about that because it's going to be, I'm calling it, of course, this isn't my thing, but My Home to Yours, but also featuring one of my favorite local musicians, Brandon Wozniak. He's a local saxophone player, and I've been going to his shows since I was in high school. So it's an honor that he said yes, and he's on board to do a solo saxophone set, and we might do a song together. We'll see.
Ooh.
So nice. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Nice. I didn't mean to interrupt you, except I wanted to make sure that people made the connection of where and when while you were talking about the video, because you were about to, I think, talk about another video.
Yes, yeah. So the other video is for By Redwood from the Fawn. And that one I'm doing with a friend that I mentioned, Elena Stanton. And she actually did my video for A World Perhaps. That was from my EP a couple years ago. And the concept for this one, we're renting a room in a bed and breakfast in Stillwater. And I don't want to give away too much, but one of the themes is alchemy. So we're going to be playing with symbolism and kind of how you kind of like transforming oneself and growing, and kind of using alchemy as this symbol.
Very cool.
I'm excited for that one.
I've been reading this whole book called Psychology and Alchemy by Carl Jung in preparation. So we'll see if that
Ooh.
has any effect or not.
Writing it down.
Well, it's fun to talk to you, because anybody who has a season for their songs, videos, there's clearly an underlying spirituality there. Kind of
Right. Yeah, I know, even that.
but it's good. It's good, and it comes through. I mean, there's, you get a feeling from your music as much as anything else. Kind of like with the Waves video, there's just that feeling of a certain. It's difficult to put your finger on it because it's difficult to put words to it, but it's very striking. When you're like, oh, this one makes me feel kind of calm, and this one makes me feel sort of sad. It's just I don't want to say otherworldly, but it's just more of a subconscious reaction than
Thank
anything
you.
else.
That's really nice to hear, because that's what it does for me too. So I'm glad it translates.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't wait to see some more of the videos. I think those are.
Can I ask you one question about your playing? You do the finger picking, which I know is more unique. Had you always done it that way, or is the cool Mike Michelson the one that taught you that, or who?
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Mike Michael?
Oh, excuse me, Mike Michael.
Yeah.
I said Michelson. Sorry.
That's okay.
I love him.
Yeah. So he was my guitar teacher from when I was 13 to when I was 18, and pretty much my only full-time, regular guitar teacher. I took some other kind of sporadic lessons in New York, and then a couple of random ones in California. But he was my main guitar teacher. Again, this is a little separate, but again, just a person who like those students at Per-Pitch, again, just a person who was very validating. He would say, you are an artist. No matter what you do, it's just who you are. And just hearing that at that age was very affirming. And that, even more than, learning guitar, that just does a lot at that point in your life. I did kind of always love finger picking. I think he showed it to me at one point, and I just never wanted to stop. I played electric guitar for a spell in middle school, but I kind of just stopped caring about it at a certain point, because I think finger picking kind of just took over, and it sounds better on acoustic. And it just I think it just is kind of like my personality, or kind of like my voice. I think these things, they're all expressions of the same thing. I'm an introvert, so I don't sing very loud. I don't play very loud, but there's other things going on if you listen, So I think that's why I kind of liked it. I also like challenges. I feel like with guitar, I was always looking for what else can I learn? And with finger picking, it's I still don't know every possible pattern to finger pick, so it's just fun.
Well, it helps to get the unique sound.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think as a solo player, it helps have some variety. I even felt self-conscious because I hardly have strumming songs, and I was like, "There's 2 strumming songs on this album. Is that going to be boring?" But I think I'm the only one who notices.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, not boring.
No. As I said, there's just a great movement to it. Yeah. It's well, I suppose partially because I've been, listening to it more through the cold here, but to me, it does have it has kind of a winter to spring feel to some of it for me. And again, maybe that's because of the video that I saw of you from your last, I know that was not on the album, but it's, that kind of appeal. So
Yeah, well, when I was kind of sequencing the album, I like I said, I kept the first order how I had it back in the day. But then from there, I didn't keep it just chronological. I kind of wanted to see, like, okay, what is the overall story? Not even just lyric wise, because lyrics are kind of my number one, so I get very personal and touchy about that. And I kind of had to fight myself and be like, okay, the lyrics don't have to be in order of what happened, but maybe sonically you need the order to be the experience you want. And so when I first sent it to Sarah, who made the waves, and she listened to the whole album, she commented on how it starts kind of dark and ends kind of like more positive and light. And I was like, yes, that is what I ended up trying to go for, which is kind of like a winter to spring. And I never thought about it that way, but kind of starting it. So Famine Months is the first song, and there's lyrics that talk about like all the world is white and iced, nothing lives and nothing dies. That's like the dead of winter. And then it ends with till the petals fell, when like images of flowers dropping their leaves. So maybe that's like, spring at the end of spring almost. Yeah.
it's
Funny. Well, sorry, and you said it reminded you of winter, and I was going to be like, I'm sitting at a end of a dock, at the lake, just surrounded by the woods and tree, and I was just like, I just feel like peaceful, like, oh, we're at the lake for the weekend or whatever. So it's so funny that you say that. So you did hit everything.
Wow, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a beautiful album, and I really look forward to the videos because I think you do such a nice job with them, and it, whether they're storyline or whether they're more evocative, I should say, yeah, they're fantastic. For folks who are listening, let us know where we can find you online.
So online, my website is gretaruth.com. My Instagram is @Greta_Ruth. I'm on Bandcamp, gretaruth.bandcamp.com. On YouTube, Greta Ruth. And then, you can search the album on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. You can find it anywhere.
All the regular places. And that the Fawn came out at the end of January, and you've got the live stream on March 27th.
Mm-hmm.
And that's through the band.
She has good merch too, jewelry.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because you use guitar strings too.
Yes, actually I'm wearing some of it now. So I have, it's probably so hard to see, but these both have guitar strings like inside.
Ooh.
And then I use.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. And then I use like pearls and things with them. I've been meaning to I have these little fawn charms to make fawn earrings with the guitar string earrings. But I have some other pieces on there that use my guitar strings too. And t-shirts and stickers and posters.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I need to know when you have the fawns come out because I would be all over that.
Yeah.
How do you name? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said I'll let you know.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, how do you name? Like, what just because you seem very, meticulous on placements and your wording and how you do stuff, like how do you come about naming your album?
My album, yeah, I mean, for song by song, it can take me a while. I'll usually try to just think about, what are all the themes, what are all the meanings that it has to me, and is there a way I could condense that into one word or phrase? Sometimes that doesn't get me anywhere, and I just use something from the song, or maybe something from the song is that thing, like at the place. That's just the first line, at the place. That's what I sing first. Um, the fawn kind of was this bigger overarching thing. I don't know if you saw my Bandcamp, but I was kind of like the blurb that I wrote about the album was it's somewhat about how our biggest virtues can also be our biggest vices, which again kind of goes back to that thing we were talking about with Oslo. And for myself, kind of being someone who is somewhat innocent, somewhat soft spoken, wanting other people to be really happy, all these things that maybe seem like a good thing also have been, whenever I get into trouble, it's because of that. Or whenever I've, had life crises, it's because of the thing that maybe is actually the best thing about me, but it's not always working in that way or working in my favor, or in whoever's favor. So, and I've seen that with people that I know as well. And so the fawn is kind of like my version of that. It's kind of like, I kind of like relate to that animal and kind of those things, like kind of being gentle and kind of shy, but then, again, that's not always a good thing. And one kind of, it's so funny because I look back in journals and I had written the word the fawn just on random journals. I think I like it as a word, like it sounds good, and I like the animal. But then I also learned about there's stress responses, and we all know there's fight and flight, and then there's also freeze, which is a newer one where you in a stress situation you can't do anything. And then I learned that there's fawn, which is in a stress situation you try to kind of please, whoever is threatening you, as kind of a response to that. And that really hit me hard of, my own tendencies. And again, to see like, okay, that's where these things that seem good, where they could go wrong, and where you need to be more self-aware of like, what's the bigger picture, what might be really happening, that your autopilot is one thing, but you need to know the bigger picture, basically. So then I was like, okay, I have to call it this.
Is there a song on the album that you would point to that kind of, it sounds like there's a lot of emotion to it, and you sort of talked about it coming out through the light. Is there a song that kind of talks about where you may have made that realization, or kind of came to appreciate, or came to terms with it, or?
I think so. They kind of all do, and that's one thing. I think like another thing that I've just learned over time is we really aren't as smart as we want to be. Like I feel like I'm always having the same realizations, and I'll read a journal. I'm like, yeah, I knew it then, but then I didn't act on it, or I didn't, whatever. So I feel like in some sense they all are, but I guess I would say the fawn is the one that I was maybe more focused on being that. Because that one was where I was trying to face like, what is my reality right now when I wrote it, and that was when I was having all those realizations about that word and those things. So
Nice.
I find it so interesting that you were so drawn to it too before you even had the knowledge of what it meant. Just your internal psyche was like, here you are, here you are.
I know exactly, and that's again why it's just kind of like whether you know or you don't know, in some way you kind of know because those things are there, and you're drawn to things, or I guess it's better to have the words for it though, if you can.
It is. It's hard to sometimes to have the words for it, but yes.
Yeah, right.
Astute
Yeah.
observation. Yeah. I have a friend in the picture behind me. We and I go to the woods often, very often. She has had deer have fed out of her hand. We're going to listen to the fawn tomorrow while we're walking in the woods.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what we'll do. Yeah. I mean, because she's a friend of mine since grade school, but because of her, I've come to love the fawns. I'm a little more skittish around all animals.
Oh really?
To be fair, but the fawns that we get so very close. So yes, we will have you in our spirit tomorrow. So it's
That is
love it.
I dream of that. I dream of getting to meet one in the wild. We went to like a petting zoo in, I think it's in like Maplewood Mall or something. But we went there and I got to pet a fawn and I was so excited. But I would rather pet one, in its habitat.
Well, I'm not going to tell you should pet one, but Winnetonka down by old Fort Snelling, Winnetonka. I'll give you the address.
Yeah, I wouldn't just try and grab it. I wouldn't be mean.
Some of them will walk right up to you. They will. I mean, I still am. They're wild animals, but yeah. So I will be thinking about you tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll get to see you on the play on the 27th. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your talents and your music and your stories with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.